The emergency session of the Galactic Council erupted into chaos as Admiral Zethrix slammed his four-clawed hand against the crystalline table. Representatives from dozens of species filled the vast chamber, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, growls, and telepathic static that echoed off the polished walls. Impossible. Zethrix's voice boomed through his translation device. Our sensors must be malfunctioning. No primitive species could construct such a vessel. Council Speaker Vortanian, a being whose gaseous form shifted colors with emotion, pulsed a deep red of irritation. Admiral, your own fleet detected the anomaly. Are you now questioning the reliability of your equipment? The holographic display at the center of the chamber showed the cause of their distress. A massive warship hung in the void beyond the Kepler station, its dark hull stretching nearly 2 kilometers in length. Unlike the sleek, organic curves favored by most galactic civilizations, this vessel appeared brutally functional. Angular sections jutted from its frame, covered in what appeared to be armor plating thick enough to withstand planetary bombardment. The humans were classified as Level 2 on the technological scale, hissed Counselor Slotha, her serpentine form coiled around her speaking platform. They barely achieved faster-than-light travel 50 of their years ago. This monstrosity suggests capabilities far beyond what we observed. Admiral Zethrix activated his personal scanner, studying the readouts with growing unease. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. The power core alone appears to generate more energy than most of our battle cruisers. Perhaps it's a deception, suggested Counselor Brix, his insectoid wings buzzing nervously. A facade designed to intimidate. Humans have shown themselves to be cunning in our previous encounters. The chamber fell silent as memories of those encounters surfaced. 3 years ago, the Council had made first contact with humanity, expecting to find another species ready for peaceful integration into their galactic community. Instead, they discovered a race that had spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare against their own kind. The initial cultural assessment teams reported concerning findings. Vortanian reminded the assembly. Humans have no natural predators on their homeworld, yet they developed sophisticated military tactics and weapons technology. Most species achieve interstellar travel through cooperation and scientific advancement. Humans reach the stars while simultaneously maintaining over 200 separate military organizations. Counselor Thane, whose rocky, mountain-like form rarely moved during sessions, slowly turned his attention to the display. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of eons. I have studied the human archives they shared during first contact. Their history is an unbroken chain of conflicts, innovations born from necessity, and rapid adaptation to threats. While we were forming trade partnerships and cultural exchanges, they were learning to kill efficiently. Surely you exaggerate, Slotha interjected. No species could survive such constant warfare. On the contrary, Thane replied, it made them stronger. Consider this. Most council species evolved under stable conditions. Humans evolved in chaos. Every generation faced new challenges, new enemies, new obstacles. Those who survived passed on genes for intelligence, adaptability, and resilience. Admiral Zethrix pulled up tactical data on his console. Our xenobiologist reports indicate humans possess remarkable physical capabilities compared to most intelligent species. Enhanced reflexes, superior hand-eye coordination, advanced pattern recognition, and an unusual ability to function under extreme stress. Yet we offered them membership in the Council, Vortanian observed, colors shifting to a concerned yellow. We assumed their primitive status made them suitable for guidance and eventual integration. A miscalculation, Thane admitted. We applied our standard evaluation protocols, designed for species that followed predictable development paths. Humans represent something unprecedented. The display shifted to show long-range sensor data from the mysterious warship. Energy readings fluctuated in patterns none of their computers could interpret. Weapons systems remained powered but showed no targeting locks. The vessels simply waited, maintaining position exactly 1 million kilometers from Kepler Station. They haven't responded to any communication attempts, reported Communication Director Ilex, her crystalline form chiming softly as she spoke. Standard diplomatic frequencies, emergency channels, even the basic mathematical sequences we use for first contact protocols. Complete silence. Perhaps they're studying us, suggested Brix. Analyzing our defenses, cataloging our capabilities. Admiral Zethrix's expression darkened. Or deciding how to destroy us. The thought sent ripples of unease through the chamber. The Galactic Council controlled a territory spanning 3 spiral arms, protected by fleets that had maintained peace for over 1,000 years. The idea that a single vessel from a primitive world could pose a genuine threat seemed absurd. We should consider the possibility that this ship represents a breakthrough in human technology, Thane continued. Their development curve has been exponential since achieving interstellar flight. What took us centuries to develop, they accomplished in decades. Impossible, Zethrix repeated, though with less conviction than before. The physical laws remain constant. There are limits to how quickly any species can advance. Are there? Thane's ancient voice carried a hint of uncertainty. We've never encountered a species like humans before. Their scientific method differs from ours significantly, where we pursue knowledge through careful observation and gradual understanding. They seem to thrive on experimentation and rapid iteration. Vortanian's gaseous form pulsed thoughtfully. The cultural reports mentioned their tendency toward disruptive innovation. They frequently abandon established methods in favor of completely new approaches. Reckless, Slotha hissed. Such behavior typically results in catastrophic failures. For humans, it results in breakthrough discoveries, Thane corrected. Their history shows a pattern of solving problems through unconventional means. When faced with obstacles, they don't work around them or wait for better conditions. They find ways to eliminate the obstacles entirely. The chamber's attention returned to the display as new data streams appeared. The human warship had begun moving, not toward Kepler Station, but in a slow, deliberate pattern that seemed almost ritualistic. They're scanning, Admiral Zethrix realized, his voice tightening. Look at these sensor sweeps. They're mapping our entire defensive grid. In minutes, Ilex added with growing alarm. Our most advanced reconnaissance vessels require hours to gather this level of detail. And they're not even trying to hide their actions, Brix observed. Either they're supremely confident, or they want us to know what they're capable of. Counselor Thane studied the scanning patterns with the patience of stone. Both, I suspect. This display serves multiple purposes. They gather intelligence while simultaneously demonstrating technological superiority. We underestimated them, Vortanian admitted, colors cycling through a spectrum of concerned hues. When they requested council membership, we assumed they sought our protection and guidance. We never considered they might be evaluating us as potential allies or potential threats, Zethrix concluded grimly. And, based on our response so far, they're likely reaching concerning conclusions about our capabilities. The scanning pattern completed, and the human warship resumed its stationary position. No communications followed. No demands or explanations. The vessel simply waited, its presence a silent challenge to everything the Council thought they understood about galactic civilization. We need to respond, Vortanian declared. Continued silence will be interpreted as weakness. Any response carries risks, Thane warned. If we project strength, they may view it as aggression. If we appear weak, they may act accordingly. Then, what do you suggest? Slotha demanded. We learn, Thane replied simply. We study this vessel, analyze its capabilities, and try to understand what humanity has become. Only then can we decide how to proceed. Admiral Zethrix began issuing orders to his fleet commanders, careful to maintain defensive positions while gathering as much intelligence as possible. The other council members continued their debate, voices rising as fear and uncertainty drove their discussions. None of them noticed the subtle energy fluctuations emanating from the human warship as it began its own analysis of their responses. Deep within its hull, systems designed by human minds processed data at speeds that would have astounded the Council's greatest scientists. Every move they made, every defensive position they assumed, every communication they transmitted was being cataloged and analyzed. The humans were indeed studying them, but not as potential allies or threats. They were studying them as obstacles to be overcome, challenges to be solved, problems requiring solution. And, as the Council would soon discover, Humans approached such problems with methods unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the alien station through the main viewport with the calm expression that had earned her command of humanity's first deep space warship. Around her, the bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as her crew monitored systems that represented the pinnacle of human engineering and determination. Status report, she requested without turning from the viewport. Commander Marcus Rodriguez, her executive officer, consulted his tactical display. All systems operating within normal parameters, Captain. The aliens have deployed 17 vessels in defensive formations around their station. None have achieved weapons lock. They're scared, observed Lieutenant Commander Zhang Wei from the science station. Their energy signatures show elevated stress patterns. Heart rates increased across all detected species. Captain Chen allowed herself a slight smile. Good. Fear makes people honest. Captain, called out Ensign Thompson from communications, we're receiving multiple transmission attempts on various frequencies. Standard diplomatic protocols, emergency channels, even basic mathematical sequences. They want to talk, Rodriguez noted. They want to understand, Chen corrected. Two different things entirely. The bridge crew continued their duties with the precision that defined the new human military doctrine. Unlike the aliens observing them, these men and women had been selected not just for their technical skills, but for their ability to think beyond conventional limitations. Each had survived the rigorous selection process that identified individuals capable of adapting human warfare principles to galactic-scale conflicts. Science analysis complete, Captain, Zhang reported. The station's defensive capabilities are impressive but predictable. Standard energy shields, conventional weapons systems, centralized command structure. Exactly what we expected from a cooperative galactic government. Weaknesses? Chen inquired. Multiple critical vulnerabilities. Their shield generators are externally mounted for easy maintenance. Their weapons systems follow targeting protocols designed for ship-to-ship combat rather than asymmetric warfare. And their command structure relies on consensus decision-making. Chen nodded slowly. During humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council 3 years ago, human intelligence agencies had worked overtime to understand their new galactic neighbors. What they discovered was both encouraging and concerning. The Council species had achieved interstellar civilization through cooperation, shared resources, and peaceful resolution of conflicts. They had eliminated war, poverty, and resource scarcity through advanced technology and social engineering. By any reasonable measure, they represented the ideal that humanity claimed to aspire toward. But humans had learned long ago that ideals and reality rarely aligned. The Council's peace has made them weak, Chen said, voicing the conclusion that had shaped human policy for the past 3 years. They've forgotten how to fight because they've never needed to. While we've never stopped learning, Rodriguez added, every human conflict taught us something new about warfare, strategy, and survival. The Defiance represented the culmination of that learning. Built in secret over the past 2 years, she incorporated technologies that officially didn't exist and capabilities that challenged the accepted limitations of physics. Her hull contained metamaterials that could absorb or reflect energy across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Her weapons systems included devices that the Council scientists would classify as theoretically impossible. Her engines operated on principles that human physicists had discovered while studying ways to make warfare more efficient. Captain, Zhang continued, I'm detecting increased activity aboard the alien vessels. They appear to be conducting detailed scans of our ship. Let them look, Chen replied. The more they scan, the more they'll realize how little they understand. The truth was more complex than her confident words suggested. The Defiance was indeed a marvel of human engineering, but she was also a carefully crafted deception. Every system the aliens could detect had been designed to project specific capabilities while concealing humanity's true technological achievements. Sir, Thompson called out, I'm receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Chen moved to her captain's chair, settling into the command position with practiced ease. Put it through. The bridge's main display activated, showing the stern features of Admiral Harrison, the architect of humanity's galactic strategy. His weathered face carried the expression of a man who had spent decades preparing for this moment. Captain Chun, report on the Council's response. As predicted, Admiral. Complete shock, defensive positioning, attempts at communication. They're following the playbook exactly. Any signs they suspect the true nature of your mission? None whatsoever. They believe the Defiance represents our first attempt at military starship construction. Admiral Harrison's expression grew grim. Good. Maintain the deception until Phase 2 activation. How long until you reach the designated coordinates? Chen consulted her navigation display. 47 hours at current speed. Understood. Execute Phase 2 on schedule. Harrison out. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. Every crew member understood the significance of their mission, though few knew the complete scope of humanity's plans. Captain, Rodriguez asked quietly, do you think they'll figure it out before it's too late? Chen considered the question carefully. The Council's greatest strength is their ability to work together toward common goals. Their greatest weakness is their assumption that everyone else shares their values. And humans don't share those values? We want peace, Chen replied. But we want it on our terms, backed by our strength, protected by our capabilities. The Council offers peace through submission to their authority and acceptance of their limitations. Zhang looked up from his scanner readings. The alien vessels are repositioning. Looks like they're trying to surround us. Textbook maneuver, Rodriguez observed. Contain the unknown threat while gathering intelligence. Predictable, Chen agreed. They're thinking like a police force rather than a military organization. The distinction was crucial. Police forces were designed to maintain order within established systems. Military forces were designed to destroy enemy systems and impose new orders. The Council had maintained galactic peace for so long that they had forgotten the difference. Captain, Thompson reported, I'm detecting subspace communications between the alien vessels. Heavy encryption, but our systems are breaking down their protocols. What are they saying? Debate over how to respond to our presence. Some want to demand we leave immediately. Others suggest opening diplomatic negotiations. They can't reach consensus. Chen smiled again. While they debate, we prepare. The next phase of their mission would test humanity's understanding of galactic politics and Council psychology. Intelligence reports suggested the Council operated on the assumption that all intelligent species could be reasoned with, negotiated with, and eventually integrated into their peaceful civilization. Humans had allowed them to maintain that assumption for 3 years, playing the role of primitive but eager students seeking guidance from their wise galactic neighbors. They had shared selected portions of human history, carefully edited to emphasize humanity's desire for peace while downplaying their technological capabilities. Engineering reports all systems ready for Phase 2 implementation, Rodriguez announced. Excellent. Begin final preparations. Throughout the ship, crew members activated systems that existed nowhere in official human technology databases. Weapons that operated on principles discovered in classified research facilities powered up silently. Defensive systems that shouldn't have been possible according to current physics engaged their full capabilities. Communication arrays capable of penetrating any known encryption or jamming locked onto targets throughout Council space. The Council believes they're observing humanity's first serious attempt at military starship construction, Chen explained to her senior staff. They have no idea they're looking at our least advanced vessel. The Defiance was indeed humanity's first deep space warship, but she was far from their most capable. Hidden throughout human space, automated shipyards were completing construction on vessels that made the Defiance look primitive by comparison. The Council's peaceful civilization was about to encounter something they had never imagined, a species that had perfected the art of war before achieving interstellar travel. Captain, Zhang called out, long-range sensors are detecting movement in the outer system. 3 additional Council vessels are approaching. Reinforcements, Rodriguez noted. Or an escort, Chen corrected. They want to make sure we understand their superior numbers. She studied the tactical display, watching as the Council forces moved with the precision of a well-rehearsed formation. Their tactics were sound, their positioning logical, their coordination impressive. By any conventional measure, they represented a formidable military force. But humans had stopped thinking conventionally a long time ago. All hands, prepare for Phase 2 implementation in 36 hours, Chen announced over the ship's communication system. Remember, the galaxy is watching. Let's show them what humanity is really capable of. The crew responded with quiet determination. Each had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not return to Earth. Each understood that their actions would determine humanity's future in galactic civilization. And each had absolute confidence in their ability to succeed where conventional approaches had failed. The Council was about to learn that humanity's greatest gift wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their ability to think beyond the limitations that other species accepted as unchangeable laws of nature. The Council's emergency session had been running for 6 hours when the impossible happened. Every sensor, every scanner, every detection system throughout the Kepler system registered the same impossible reading. The human warship had vanished. Impossible. Admiral Zethryx roared for the third time that day, his four-clawed hands dancing frantically across his command console. Ships don't simply disappear. Not from this range. Not with our sensor coverage. Counselor Thane's massive stone-like form shifted slowly as he processed the implications. Unless they possess technology we don't understand. The holographic display that had shown the human vessel now displayed only empty space. 23 different sensor arrays, positioned throughout the system for maximum coverage, all reported the same result. Nothing. The 2-kilometer warship had vanished as completely as if it had never existed. Stealth technology, suggested Brix, his insectoid wings buzzing with nervous energy. No known stealth system can fool this many sensors simultaneously, Zethryx replied grimly. Our detection grid was designed to track objects as small as escape pods across interplanetary distances. Speaker Vortanian's gaseous form cycled through colors of deep concern. Perhaps they departed through hyperspace. Our long-range sensors might have missed the transition signature. Negative, reported sensor technician Ilex. All hyperspace monitoring stations confirm no departure signatures detected. The vessel didn't leave the system. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Every council species had developed some form of stealth technology over their evolutionary history, but none had achieved anything approaching total invisibility. The physical laws governing electromagnetic radiation, gravitational fields, and quantum interactions made perfect concealment theoretically impossible. They're still here, Thane stated with the certainty of stone. Somewhere in this system, that vessel continues to exist. Then where? Slotha hissed, her serpentine form coiling tighter around her platform. Our sensors can detect a coin-sized object at the edge of the system. How can something 2 kilometers long remain hidden? By using methods we haven't considered, Thane replied. Remember, humans develop differently than council species. Their approach to problems often involves solutions we would never attempt. Admiral Zethryx was coordinating with his fleet when a new alarm began sounding throughout the station. His expression shifted from frustration to alarm as he read the incoming reports. Speaker Vortanian, he called out urgently. We have multiple contact signatures appearing throughout the system. The human ship? Ships, Zethryx corrected, his voice tight with disbelief. 17 vessels, ranging from frigate to dreadnought class, materializing at strategic points across our defensive perimeter. The holographic display updated to show the new tactical situation. Human warships had appeared at locations that would allow them to engage council forces from multiple directions simultaneously. Each vessel was positioned to maximize its tactical advantage while minimizing the enemy's ability to coordinate defensive responses. How? Vortanian demanded, colors cycling rapidly between shock and fear. Our sensors detected nothing. No hyperspace signatures, no engine emissions, no gravitational disturbances. Unknown, Zethryx admitted. But the tactical implications are clear. They've achieved perfect strategic positioning while remaining completely undetected. Counselor Brix studied the display with growing unease. Those positions, they're not random. Each ship is placed to exploit specific weaknesses in our defensive grid. Weaknesses they shouldn't know about, Slotha observed. That information isn't included in any databases we shared with humanity. Then, they discovered it independently, Thane concluded. Through observation, analysis, and tactical planning superior to our own. The truth was more disturbing than the council realized. For the past 3 years, human intelligence networks had been studying every aspect of Council military doctrine, technology, and strategic planning. Diplomatic missions had provided cover for sophisticated espionage operations. Cultural exchange programs had allowed human agents to infiltrate Council institutions. Trade negotiations had given human negotiators access to classified information about Council capabilities and limitations. Admiral, came an urgent transmission from the Council fleet. All human vessels are powering weapons systems. Defensive formations. Zethryx commanded. All ships maintain ready status, but do not achieve weapons lock without direct orders. Sir, his tactical officer reported. Initial scans of the human vessels show significant differences from the ship we observed earlier. Differences? These ships appear more advanced. Different hull configurations, unknown energy signatures, weapon systems that don't match any known designs. The implications struck the Council leadership simultaneously. The original human warship hadn't been their most advanced vessel. It had been a deliberate demonstration, a carefully planned revelation designed to test Council responses while concealing humanity's true capabilities. They played us, Vortanian said quietly, colors shifting to a dark blue of realization. For 3 years, they've been studying us while we believed we were studying them. The cultural exchanges, the diplomatic missions, the trade negotiations, Slotha added with growing horror. All of it was intelligence gathering. And we gave them everything they needed, Thane acknowledged. Detailed information about our technology, our strategic doctrines, our political structures. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Captain Chun watched as her fleet assumed their assigned positions with flawless precision. The Council forces were responding exactly as human tactical computers had predicted, following defensive protocols that human strategists had studied and analyzed for months. All ships report ready status, Captain, Commander Rodriguez announced. Phase 2 implementation complete. Excellent. Open communications with the alien station. Channel open, ma'am. Chun activated the ship's external communications array, broadcasting on frequencies she knew the Council monitored continuously. Her message was transmitted in perfect Council standard, spoken with the confidence of someone who held all the advantages. Council vessels and Kepler Station, this is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earth Ship Defiance. You will power down your weapons systems and prepare to receive human representatives for immediate negotiations. The response came after several minutes of obvious debate. Speaker Vortanian's translated voice carried carefully controlled diplomatic tones. Captain Chun, the Galactic Council welcomes peaceful dialogue. However, your current tactical positioning suggests hostile intent. Our positioning suggests competence, Chun corrected. We're here to renegotiate humanity's relationship with the Council. I don't understand. Humanity requested membership in the Council. We've been working toward your integration into galactic civilization. Chin's smile was cold. Integration under Council authority, accepting Council limitations, following Council rules. That's not integration. That's subjugation. The bridge crew could hear the shocked silence from the Council vessels. The concept of refusing Council membership was apparently beyond their understanding. Captain, Vortanian finally replied. The Council offers peace, prosperity, and advancement to all member species. We provide protection, resources, and knowledge. In exchange for submission, Chun stated flatly, humanity has studied your civilization for 3 years. We understand how the Council maintains peace. You eliminate conflict by eliminating the ability to fight. You prevent wars by making all species dependent on Council technology and resources. That's civilization, Vortanian protested. That's how intelligent species live together in harmony. It's how you live, Chin corrected. Humans have different ideas about independence and self-determination. Admiral Zethryx interrupted the conversation. Captain Chun, your fleet is vastly outnumbered. Council forces throughout this sector are moving to reinforce our position. Surely you understand the tactical impossibility of your situation. Chin's laughter carried clearly through the communication channel. Admiral, you're thinking like a Council officer. Let me show you how humans think about tactical situations. She gestured to her communications officer. Patch me through to Earth Command. The next transmission filled every Council receiver with the voice of Admiral Harrison, broadcasting from Earth's Orbital Command Center. Council forces, this is Admiral Harrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are ordered to stand down immediately. Admiral, Zethryx responded. You have 17 ships in this system. Council reinforcements will number in the hundreds. 17 visible ships, Harrison corrected. Computer, activate full fleet visibility. Across the Kepler system, space itself seemed to shimmer as hundreds of human warships materialized. They appeared at every major gravitational point, around every planet, near every space lane, and communication relay. The Council's strategic positions were suddenly surrounded by human vessels that had been waiting invisibly for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. How many ships? Zethryx whispered, staring at his tactical display as the numbers climbed past anything he had thought possible. 847 vessels currently in this system, Harrison announced calmly. Another 3,000 positioned throughout Council space. We've been building and deploying for 3 years while you believed we were struggling to achieve basic interstellar capability. The Council chamber erupted in chaos as representatives realized the scope of human preparation. Every major Council system was reporting similar revelations. Human fleets had materialized throughout their territory, achieving strategic positions that would have required years of planning and perfect intelligence about Council defenses. This is impossible, Vortanian gasped, colors cycling through every hue of shock and disbelief. The resources required, the technology, the coordination. Welcome to humanity, Captain Chun said simply. We specialize in making the impossible routine. Admiral Zethryx began receiving reports from his fleet commanders. Every human vessel was maintaining ready status, but showed no immediate hostile intent. They were positioned for maximum tactical advantage, but they weren't firing. Yet, what do you want? He asked, though he suspected the answer would redefine everything the Council thought they knew about galactic civilization. Simple, Chen replied. Recognition of human sovereignty, withdrawal of all Council oversight from human space, and renegotiation of our relationship as equals rather than subjects. And if we refuse? The pause that followed lasted exactly long enough for the Council to understand they weren't actually being asked to make a choice. They were being informed of a decision that had already been made. Admiral, Chen said finally, do you really want to find out what humans consider acceptable losses in pursuit of independence? The silence that followed Captain Chen's question stretched across the star system like a physical presence. On Kepler Station, the Council representatives found themselves facing a scenario none of their diplomatic protocols had prepared them for. A species they had considered primitive was holding the entire galactic government at gunpoint. Admiral Zethryx finally broke the silence. Captain, you must understand that the Council cannot simply abandon its responsibilities to galactic civilization. We maintain peace across 3 spiral arms. Peace built on the submission of others, Chen replied. Humans prefer peace built on mutual respect. Respect earned through superior firepower? Counselor Slotha hissed. Respect earned through competence, Chen corrected. The firepower is simply how we demonstrate that competence. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Rodriguez monitored incoming tactical data from the human fleet. Captain, Council reinforcements are arriving at the edge of the system. 112 vessels so far, with more jumping in every few minutes. Let them come, Chen replied calmly. Computer, show them what they're really facing. Throughout human space, previously hidden installations activated their broadcasting systems. Deep space monitoring stations that the Council had never detected began transmitting detailed scans of every Council fleet movement. Automated defense platforms revealed themselves around human colonies the Council didn't know existed. Massive shipyards, hidden in asteroid fields and gas giant atmospheres, illuminated their construction bays filled with vessels that dwarfed anything in the current human fleet. Impossible, Admiral Zethryx whispered as his sensors processed the incoming data. The industrial capacity, the resource allocation. You've built a military infrastructure larger than the entire Council fleet. While pretending to be struggling with basic interstellar colonization, added Admiral Harrison's voice from Earth. Your intelligence services never suspected that every failed human colony was actually a disguised military installation. The truth was staggering in its scope and implications. For 3 years, humanity had been constructing the most extensive military network in galactic history. Every diplomatic mission had identified strategic weaknesses in Council defenses. Every trade negotiation had secured resources needed for ship construction. Every cultural exchange had provided opportunities to recruit species dissatisfied with Council rule. "You've been planning this since first contact," Counselor Thane observed, his stone-like voice carrying a note of something approaching admiration. "Since before first contact," Chen confirmed. "Human intelligence detected your scout ships 2 years before you made official contact. We've been preparing for this conversation for 5 years." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Council chamber. Their first contact protocols assumed they were dealing with species that had just achieved interstellar flight. The possibility that a new species might detect Council presence and prepare countermeasures had never been considered. "The question now," Admiral Harrison continued, "is whether the Council prefers negotiation or demonstration." "Demonstration?" Vortanian asked, though his gaseous form had shifted to colors suggesting he didn't want to hear the answer. "Captain Chun, show them the Prometheus project." Chen smiled grimly as she activated her ship's long-range scanners. "Council forces, direct your sensors toward the Kepler 442 system. Distance, 47 light-years." Admiral Zethrix hesitated, then complied. The results of the scan appeared on his display, and his expression shifted from skepticism to horror. That's impossible. You've destroyed an entire star system." "Restructured," Chen corrected. "The Kepler 442 system now serves as a demonstration of human engineering capabilities. Every planet has been converted into a military installation. The star itself has been modified to power weapons capable of destroying fleets at interstellar distances." The Council representatives stared at the scanner data in stunned disbelief. The Kepler 442 system had been uninhabited, containing only rocky planets and gas giants with no strategic value. In 3 years, humans had transformed it into something unprecedented in galactic history, a weaponized star system. "This violates every principle of galactic law," Vortanian protested weakly. "Galactic law as defined by the Council," Chen replied. "Humanity never agreed to those laws. You can't simply ignore the legal frameworks that govern civilized space. Watch us." The casual confidence in Chen's voice carried a message that transcended words. Humanity wasn't threatening to break galactic law. They were demonstrating that galactic law only applied to species that chose to be bound by it. Commander Rodriguez received another update from the fleet. "Captain, Council reinforcements have reached 400 vessels. Admiral Zethrix appears to be coordinating a response." "What kind of response?" Chen asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. "Surrender," Admiral Zethrix announced over the communication channel. "The Council fleet stands down. We request immediate negotiations." The speed of the surrender caught even Captain Chun by surprise. Human tactical projections had suggested the Council would attempt some form of resistance, testing human resolve before accepting the new reality. "Admiral," Counselor Slotha protested, "we cannot simply capitulate to these demands." "Counselor," Zethrix replied heavily, "we are military officers, not politicians. Our responsibility is to preserve our forces and protect our people. Continuing this confrontation would result in the destruction of the Council fleet with no possibility of meaningful resistance." His assessment was brutally accurate. Human tactical superiority wasn't limited to superior numbers or advanced technology. Their strategic planning had been flawless, their intelligence gathering complete, their execution perfect. The Council forces were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and outthought. Speaker Vortanian, Captain Chen said formally, "Humanity is prepared to begin negotiations immediately. However, we require certain preconditions to be met." "What preconditions?" "First, immediate withdrawal of all Council oversight from human space. Second, recognition of human sovereignty over all territories currently under human control. Third, establishment of a new diplomatic framework based on equality rather than Council authority." "And if we refuse these preconditions?" Chen's pause was brief, but meaningful. "Then, we proceed with Phase 3 of our operation." "Which involves?" "Admiral Harrison, would you care to explain Phase 3? The Earth commander's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Phase 3 involves the systematic dismantling of Council authority throughout the galaxy. Every species currently under Council rule will be offered the opportunity to join a new galactic alliance based on voluntary cooperation rather than enforced submission. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't simply seeking independence. They were offering to replace the entire galactic government with something unprecedented, a voluntary alliance of equals. Many species are content under Council rule, Vortanian pointed out. Then, they're free to maintain their relationship with the Council, Chen replied. But they'll also be free to choose alternatives. Real freedom includes the right to make bad choices. This will destabilize the entire galaxy, Thane warned. The galaxy is already unstable, Chen countered. The Council maintains order through suppression of natural development. Species that might have become great civilizations remain stunted under your protective oversight. We prevent wars. You prevent growth. Conflict isn't always destructive. Sometimes it's the catalyst that drives species to exceed their limitations. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. Human preparations had been too thorough, their tactical advantage too complete. The Council faced a choice between negotiation and annihilation, and their survival instincts ultimately overcame their political principles. Very well, Vortanian finally announced. The Council accepts your preconditions. We will begin immediate negotiations for a new galactic framework. Captain Chen nodded with satisfaction. Excellent. Admiral Harrison will coordinate with your diplomatic teams to establish the framework for these negotiations. Captain, Admiral Zethrix asked quietly, may I ask what humanity ultimately hopes to achieve through this restructuring of galactic civilization? Chen considered the question carefully before responding. Admiral, for millions of years, species throughout the galaxy have been content to accept limitations as natural laws. Humans have never accepted that perspective. We believe the universe is meant to be explored, understood, and mastered. And you believe other species share that vision? We believe other species deserve the opportunity to discover their own vision. The Council has been making those decisions for them for too long. As negotiations began, human fleets maintained their positions throughout Council space, not as occupying forces, but as reminders that the old order had ended. The galaxy's first voluntary alliance was about to be born, midwifed by human determination and protected by human strength. The Council's age of benevolent dictatorship was over. The age of competitive cooperation was about to begin, and humanity would ensure that every species had the chance to reach for greatness rather than settle for safety. 6 months after the confrontation at Kepler Station, the galaxy looked vastly different. The emergency session that had begun with Council arrogance had transformed into something unprecedented. The first galactic assembly of independent species. Captain Sarah Chun stood before the massive assembly hall on New Geneva Station, humanity's first diplomatic facility constructed specifically for interspecies relations. Representatives from over 200 species filled the chamber, each delegation representing a world or system that had chosen independence over Council oversight. The transformation has exceeded even our most optimistic projections, reported Admiral Harrison through her private communication device. 47 species have declared independence from Council authority. Another 36 are negotiating transition agreements. Chen watched as Councillor Thane approached her position, the massive stone-like being moved with deliberate slowness, but his presence commanded attention from every species in the chamber. Captain Chun, Thane began, his ancient voice carrying newfound respect. I must admit that humanity's predictions have proven remarkably accurate. Which predictions specifically? Chen asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. That many species under Council protection were capable of far more than we allowed them to achieve. The evidence was overwhelming. The Zalari, a species the Council had classified as requiring technological guidance, had developed revolutionary advances in space-time manipulation within weeks of gaining independence. The Korthak, considered too aggressive for advanced weapons technology, had channeled their natural competitiveness into innovations that made their military forces among the most effective in the galaxy. Freedom is a powerful motivator, Chen observed. The Council's protective oversight prevented species from discovering their own capabilities and created resentment we never recognized, Thane admitted. Our intelligence services are reporting numerous species that had been planning resistance movements before humanity provided an alternative. The truth was more complex than simple rebellion. Human intelligence operations had identified dozens of species that possessed the technological and social foundations for independence, but lacked the confidence to challenge Council authority. Humanity's demonstration of successful resistance had provided both inspiration and practical proof that independence was achievable. Speaker Vortanian wishes to address the assembly, announced the protocol officer, a Zalari whose species had assumed responsibility for diplomatic coordination. The gaseous being who had once led the Galactic Council now appeared before representatives of species that had chosen to leave his authority. His form had stabilized into colors of determined acceptance, suggesting he had reached some form of peace with the new reality. Delegates of the Independent Assembly, Vortanian began. The Council extends formal recognition to your sovereignty and requests establishment of diplomatic relations with your new alliance. The response came from Ambassador Yentra of the Korthak, a species whose aggressive nature had been carefully suppressed under Council rule. The Assembly appreciates the Council's recognition. However, we require clarification regarding the Council's intentions toward species still under their authority. The Council will continue to provide protection and guidance to any species that requests our continued oversight, Vortanian replied. We make no claim to universal authority. And you won't interfere with species that choose to leave Council protection? Pressed Ambassador Chun, representing humanity's interests in the formal proceedings. We will not interfere with voluntary transitions, Vortanian confirmed. However, we reserve the right to provide sanctuary to any species that finds independence unsuitable. The qualification was significant. The Council had learned that forced protection was unsustainable, but they maintained hope that some species would voluntarily return to their oversight after experiencing the challenges of independence. Admiral Zethrix, now serving as the Council's military liaison to the Assembly, provided a tactical assessment that surprised everyone present. Frankly, the Council's military capabilities have improved since the restructuring began. How so? Chen asked. We're no longer responsible for maintaining defensive coverage across 3 spiral arms. Our forces can concentrate on protecting willing member species and developing more advanced defensive technologies. The statement revealed an unexpected consequence of humanity's intervention. By forcing the Council to abandon universal authority, humans had inadvertently made the remaining Council territories more defensible and their military forces more effective. Competition breeds excellence, Chen observed. The Council now faces the same pressures that drive human development. Indeed, Zethrix agreed. We've been forced to innovate, adapt, and improve. Our weapons technology has advanced more in 6 months than in the previous decade. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. Humanity's challenge to Council authority had created exactly the kind of competitive environment that humans thrived in. Instead of weakening galactic civilization, the independence movement was driving rapid advancement across multiple species and technologies. The Assembly has prepared a proposal for formal alliance structures, announced Ambassador Krell of the Mantarian Republic, another species that had discovered remarkable capabilities after leaving Council oversight. We propose a voluntary defense compact based on mutual assistance rather than central authority. The proposal represented everything the Council had tried to prevent: independent species coordinating military actions without centralized oversight. Yet the results spoke for themselves. Independent species were developing faster, innovating more rapidly, and achieving technological breakthroughs that had been impossible under Council protection. The proposal is acceptable to humanity, Chen announced. We're prepared to contribute our technological and military capabilities to the common defense. With the understanding, added Admiral Harrison's voice from Earth, that each species retains sovereignty over their own territory and military decisions. The Assembly voted overwhelmingly to approve the alliance structure. Within hours, formal treaties were signed establishing the first voluntary military alliance in galactic history. Unlike the Council's protective oversight, The new alliance required unanimous consent for military action and guaranteed each member's right to withdraw at any time. As the session concluded, Chen found herself approached by an unexpected visitor. Commander Strix of the Hegemony, one of the most powerful military species still under council authority. "Captain," Strix said quietly, "my government has asked me to inquire about assembly membership requirements." "The Hegemony is considering independence?" Chen asked with surprise. The Hegemony possessed one of the galaxy's most advanced military technologies and had been among the Council's strongest supporters. "The Hegemony is considering options," Strix replied carefully. "Recent developments have raised questions about the long-term viability of Council protection." Chen understood immediately. The Hegemony's military leaders were recognizing that Council authority was becoming a limitation rather than an advantage. Other species were advancing rapidly under independence, while Council members remained constrained by collective decision-making and protective oversight. Assembly membership requires only a declaration of sovereignty and acceptance of our alliance principles, Chen explained. No species is required to abandon beneficial relationships with the Council or other organizations. And military obligations? Defensive only. The Assembly doesn't engage in offensive operations or territorial expansion. Strix nodded thoughtfully. "I will convey this information to my government." As representatives began departing for their home systems, Chen reflected on the scope of change that had followed humanity's demonstration at Kepler Station. The galaxy was reorganizing itself along principles that humans considered natural: voluntary cooperation, competitive development, and respect for sovereignty. "Captain," Admiral Harrison called through her communication device, "initial reports from the outlying sectors are remarkable. Independent species are achieving technological advances that the Council had predicted would take centuries. When species are free to pursue their own development paths, remarkable things become routine," Chen replied. "That's humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization. Not our military technology or strategic capabilities." Chen smiled as she watched the last delegates departing the assembly hall. Representatives of species that had been considered primitive or dangerous under Council oversight were now coordinating advanced research projects and planning joint exploration missions. "Our weapons and tactics are impressive," she acknowledged. "But our real gift to the galaxy is the idea that limitations are meant to be overcome, not accepted." The transformation was far from complete. Dozens of species remained under Council authority, and the new alliance faced challenges that would test every principle they had established. But, for the first time in galactic history, intelligent species were free to discover what they might become when artificial limitations were removed. The Council's age of protective oversight had ended. The age of competitive cooperation had begun. And, throughout the galaxy, species that had spent millennia accepting their limitations were finally free to discover their true potential. Captain Chun returned to her ship, knowing that humanity's greatest victory wasn't the defeat of the Council's military forces. It was the liberation of the galactic imagination, the restoration of the fundamental right to grow beyond accepted boundaries, and the establishment of a future where every species could choose their own path among the stars. The human warship that had appeared out of nowhere had indeed caused the Council's arrogance to crumble. But, more importantly, it had ignited something far more powerful: the galaxy's rediscovery of its own unlimited potential.